Neil Druckmann reveals the writing behind The Last of Us. Naughty Dog's The Last of Us is regarded as one of the greatest video games of all time, critically praised for its gameplay and confounding moral elements. Its story, set in a post-apocalyptic United States, received praises from critics across all platforms. The Frame's Michelle Lanz and her interview with Neil Druckmann revealed much more about the game, and how the success of The Last of Us and its story has become almost dependent on the progress of the game's creation. Druckmann reveals there is a vast difference between writing for a video game and writing for film, and how becoming a parent has become a big factor in the writing of The Last of Us. Pushing the narrative, Druckmann explains that while writing and programming are two vastly different tasks, the writer that is aware of the game's mechanics can weave a much more effective story. Druckmann says having worked with mechanics for so long helped him write stories easier, as he can see for himself the kind of paths available for players to take. Druckmann explains a particular interest in pushing his narratives, which is why he admitted he has put a lot of attention in his characters. Taking inspiration from Preachers, Sin City, and games such as Space Quest, Druckmann says he wanted to create stories driven by characters themselves. He added Naughty Dog's focus on character-driven stories may have helped him achieve this goal. On The Last of Us, The Last of Us was conceptualized in Carnegie Mellon, in Pittsburgh, where George Romero, perhaps the godfather of zombie cinema, lived. Druckmann reveals his professor is good friends with Romero, and that Romero would pick out good game ideas from his professor's projects. Druckmann already came out with a plot involving a cop losing his daughter and bonding with a teenage girl while traveling across the country, but it was eventually rejected by the king of zombie cinema. While Romero did not pick his idea, Druckmann admitted he wanted his story to become a graphic novel. He even wrote the 6-issue miniseries, complete with art, but they were rejected by publishers. During his time at Naughty Dog, he pitched his idea after the critical success of Uncharted 2. His idea was eventually accepted, and they were told to do whatever you want. The rest is history. The love of a parent. A primary aspect of the game's narrative is the universal emotion of parental love, and how parents will do anything for their children. Druckmann was about to have a child back then, and he shared that the game reinforced his ideas on what family meant. This may what have driven the protagonist Joel to make his decisions by the end of the game, no matter how horrible, in order to protect the person he sees as his daughter. In the end, Druckmann revealed how hard it was to write the game with such a conflicted moral compass. Druckmann admitted that despite the game's violence, he believes Joel's actions are justifiable, given he may have done the same thing in his place. Unlike other titles such as Uncharted where the violence is black and white, bad and good, death and violence in The Last of Us almost has the same weight in the real world. This may be why he initially rejected Troy Baker's take on Joel, having his interpretation different than his. While Druckmann gave the initial interpretation resistance, he eventually grew open to it and found Joel more attractive as a character. This improvisation of sorts let actors make changes to the script that makes the narrative much more realistic. This might be why Joel's controversial decision to save Ellie and kill everyone in the Firefly's outpost was something very radical, but reasonable, to do. Any father would do it for their child. And despite Joel's decision to lie to Ellie about the nature of the disease, in the end not all characters are perfect, and The Last of Us is not created as a tragic play. In the end, Joel has made a perfectly human decision. In miniseries, Druckmann added that unlike writing for film and television, where the script is laid first before production, writing for video games is much more complex as the plot may adjust to the limitations of the gameplay. Druckmann admitted writing the story in medias res or from the middle, where Joel and Ellie have already met and have established a bond. They then write several scenes succeeding and preceding this scene that defines their characters, which eventually led to a casting call for their roles. Given that much of the game relies on realism, part of the casting was made under motion capture. Druckmann added this helped him gather a buddy signature from actors and actresses, and to find the perfect fit for the cast. There were also serious considerations for the overall appearance of characters and how they fit in the game. Druckmann explained that their lead concept artist, for example, has been constantly pushing for more diversity in characters, that it challenged him as a writer and a director to find ways to empower people. He added that while the major narrative consisted of 200 to 300 pages, more writing has been dedicated to minor interactions with story elements that may or may not produce results. The former may then look like the Word document, while the latter will be more like an Excel spreadsheet, according to Druckmann. Shooting the scenes themselves have taken months given they shoot both cinematics and the interactive scenes. Actors are set on the soundstage and their movement and voice are captured and adapted based on circumstances.